You ever see a small local brand and then boom, a few years later it's everywhere, all over the world? How does that happen? Well, that's exactly what we're diving into today. We're going to break down the world of international marketing and give you a simple, powerful guide for taking a business across borders.
All right, so let's imagine for a second. You've built something great. Your business is a success right here at home. So what's the next big step? The big question we're all thinking about is, how do you take that local magic and make it a global success story?
Okay, so before we even think about conquering the world, we've got to get our own house in order, right? The whole journey, this entire adventure of going global, it actually starts right here, with the stuff that's at the very heart of your business, the things you actually have direct power over.
And this core, this foundation, well, in the world of marketing, we call it the marketing mix. You've probably heard of it as the famous 4 Ps. So first up is the big one, your product. And listen, this isn't just about the physical thing you're selling. It's the solution you provide, the problem you solve for your customer. It's really the heart and soul of what you're offering. Then we have price. And again, this is so much more than just a number on a tag. It's a signal, you know? It tells people about your product's quality, its value, its place in the market. And trust me, when you start thinking globally, figuring out the right price gets, well, it gets really, really interesting.
The third P is promotion. This is all about your story. How do you get the word out? How do you connect with people and get them excited about what you're doing? Think of it as your brand's unique voice shouting from the rooftops.
And last but not least, we have place. This is simply about distribution. How do you get your product into your customers' hands? It might be a storefront on the corner, an online shop, or maybe, just maybe, a massive global network that reaches every corner of the planet.
Okay, so you've got your 4 Ps sorted. But here's where the real challenge begins. The second you step outside your own office, you run into a whole world of things. Things you have absolutely no control over.
And you know what? Even on your home turf, that marketing mix you've worked so hard on is being pushed and pulled by all these external forces. There's this whole domestic environment that you have to constantly navigate.
What am I talking about? Well, think about things like politics, the economy, what your competitors are up to. You can't change any of that stuff, right? But you've got to be smart and react to it. You have to adapt.
But now, let's talk about going international. This is where it gets really mind-boggling. Because when you do that, that circle of stuff you can't control, it doesn't just get bigger, it explodes.
All of a sudden, you're not just thinking about one economy, you're thinking about many. You're dealing with completely different cultures, new landscapes, different levels of technology. It's a whole new ballgame. Every single country you enter is like adding a brand new, super complex layer to this massive puzzle.
So looking at all these challenges, you might be thinking, where do I even begin? How do you take that very first step into a brand new country?
Well, there are a few main ways to do it, and each one is a balancing act, really. It's a trade-off between how much risk you're willing to take and how much control you want to have. You can start small, just by exporting. That's pretty low risk, but you don't have much say. Or you could go all in and build your own factory there. That's high risk for sure, but you get total control.
And each of these choices opens up so many different doors. You could partner with a local company that already knows the market, or you could decide to build your own team from scratch. There's no single right answer. It all comes down to what you're trying to achieve in the long run.
All right, so let's say you're in. You've made your move. Now you face one of the biggest decisions in international business. Do you keep everything the same everywhere? One global brand, one message? Or do you change things up for each and every local market?
This is that classic age-old debate, standardization versus adaptation. Standardizing means you're super efficient, your costs are lower, and you build this one consistent brand image all over the world. But adapting? Well, that means you're creating something that feels truly local, building a much deeper connection with people in that specific market.
So what's the answer? Honestly, the real magic happens when companies figure out how to do both. They have this big, overarching global strategy, but they're also flexible enough to tweak things to fit local tastes. It's the very definition of thinking global, but acting local.
And that really brings us to the key takeaway here. Success in international marketing isn't just about putting your product in a box and shipping it somewhere else. It's about exporting your strategy, a strategy that's built to bend and adapt. It's about taking those 4 Ps we talked about and fine-tuning them to solve the unique puzzle of every single new market you enter.
So, as we wrap this up, and as you start thinking about your own big global dreams, the question isn't just if you should expand. The real question, the one you need to ask yourself, is this: How will you change? How will you adapt to not just make it in the global marketplace, but to truly, truly thrive?